So here we are. Can you believe it? We're in Thanksgiving week. We begin Thanksgiving week. What a wonderful thing that is too. And what a blessing it is for us to be celebrating such a great good thing. Gratitude, appreciation, thanksgiving. It always increases us and it always blesses us when we do that. And so here we are, chapter 6 in The Art of Life. This thing called life by Ernest Holmes. And in this particular chapter, Dr. Ernest Holmes is just pressing home to us the necessity of really getting a grip on the basic fundamental teaching that there's a power for good in the universe greater than you are, greater than I am, greater than anything is. We are using it all of the time, this power of consciousness, and more importantly, we can use it for good, but only when we're using it consciously. So the call this week is to consciously operate along the line of thoughtful living, mindful living, purposeful living, directed living, deliberate living. And so he reminds us that this law is a law of correspondence. He reminds us that the law of consciousness favors us, blesses us, sets us up on high when we recognize it, use it deliberately, and have absolute confidence in it. So the push that he's pushing in this chapter is have confidence in the law of your life. Have confidence in it, have faith in it, trust it, and consequently realize it's good. And he starts out straight away with the story. He talks about a woman, once upon a time, wanted to get into movies, thought she could make it big in movies. But after a certain length of time, of course, she began to feel that it just wasn't happening. And she became depressed, discouraged, with the feeling of helplessness and hopelessness. Anyway, she found herself in the company of Ernest Holmes. And what he was struck by more than anything else about this woman was her deep, deep orthodox faith. Deep orthodox faith. So he found that to be a wonderful good thing. And he thought, I just have to find a way of the two of us coming into agreement about something for her to move ahead. This was not the time to be instructing her in the principles of science of mind and so on and so forth, etc. She had a profound and deep faith. And so he spoke to the lady and said to her, I would love if you could come into agreement with me on this particular scripture piece. And the scripture piece was, He will set you on high because you have known his name. He will set you on high because you have known his name. You translated always the scripture to yourself. So the actual quote was, he will set him on high because he has known my name. And so he had her repeat after him carefully several times. He will set him on high because he has known his name. She did that, and then he asked her to relate that to herself. He will set me on high. But then went from the will to has. He has set me on high because I have known his name. And literally that means I am blessed, I am favored, I am given to, I am provided for because I have a deep relationship with my source and I absolutely trust in my source's divine providence to me. That's what that means. So off she went and she did that. And lo and behold, because there was absolutely nothing in her thinking, in her feeling, in her doing that denied the goodness of God in her life, that denied God's ability to bring through her the good that she desired. Because she had that childlike absolute faith in divine providence and did as Ernest Holmes had requested, she began to see a change. And he had explained to her that when she would say, "He has set me on high because I have known his name," she was to think in terms of the newspapers and billboards all full of her wonder and her talent and her glory, and that was what she was to vision and see herself, in other words, up in lights. And that's exactly what happened. And he says, and most of you have seen her in performance very many times, but he didn't divulge her name. So obviously it's some great actress that came to him in the beginning when things weren't going right, and through the principles and through the absolute faith in divine providence, it all turned out. And he said it to her. He said, when before she left on that first visit, "Can you absolutely believe in this principle? Can you believe in divine providence in this way? Can you believe this piece of scripture?" And she said, "Of course I can. I have always believed in God." So it comes back to that faith, it comes back to that belief, it comes back to that open receptivity in childlike faith to, of course, my Creator wants my good, wants me to flourish, and wants me to thrive. And so what Ernest Holmes is saying is that there is a direct relationship, there's a co-relationship between my conscious states and my life circumstances. There's a direct co-relationship between all of my thinking and all that's going on in my life. And you and I have to wake up to that. Because although life is love and light and peace and beauty and joy and goodness and kindness and compassion and wisdom and grace, it is also power, energy, and imagination. And we forget that at times, that life is power, energy, and imagination. There's a power and an energy and imagination in visioning, in perceiving, in thinking, in designing the good thing that I want to happen in my life, seeing it and feeling it and backing it up and sticking to it and never stepping down from it and never, ever doubting that it's going to happen. There's a power in that, a great power in that. And he says that the first thing that we ought to identify with is the kingdom of heaven. He says, remember, seek you first the kingdom of heaven and its righteousness, and everything else, all things else will be added unto you. Because within the kingdom is every possibility for every good that can happen in your life, through your life, through your understanding that there is something greater than you are, and you can use that something greater for your good. So seeking first the kingdom of heaven is to seek beyond the material, visible world. Not to go to the material, visible world for your good all the time, but to go beyond that to the invisible realm, out of which every visible thing has come. And there, understand there's so much more going on than the eye can see. And you can be part of that in a very big, positive, and affirmative way. Yes, you can. Because everything that was once invisible became everything that you see now in the world of visibility. Because out of invisibility flows the visible. Scripture states that too. So you and I have to get that we live in a mental universe and we can achieve only what we can conceive. That's all, and no more. We live in a mental universe and we can conceive only what we can achieve, rather, only what we can see, conceive of. And so there's no reason for any of us to go in need of any good thing, if we understand this law of life, this principle of life. He said, if you and I were to sit down and make a mental inventory of our thoughts and our feelings, they would absolutely line up with all our experiences. They would be equal to our experiences. You'd be saying, oh yeah, I see how that could happen. Because I was thinking that at that time. I was feeling that at that time. Not surprising I didn't get the thus and so, or the thus and so didn't happen. Because I was not supporting it. I was not seeing it. I was not perceiving it. I was not imagining it. I was not visioning it. I wasn't backing it up with what I was thinking and what I was feeling at all. I didn't have confidence that that could happen for me. I didn't believe that could happen for me. I didn't have faith that that would happen for me. That's why I find myself in these dire circumstances, because my stinking thinking over there, followed with my stinking feeling over there, didn't support the good that I desired and wanted. There was nothing to fan it into being, nothing to grow it. It got no soil, it got no nutrients, it got nothing to grow it. It was left to fend for itself, and it couldn't do it on its own, so it withered away and died. You have the responsibility of your own thinking and your own feeling, and no one else has that. Nobody is responsible for the way you feel and the way you think. Nobody. Even though you might think that he's to blame and she's to blame and they're to blame and that's to blame. No, you're the one that decides how you're going to think and how you're going to feel. Thank you very much. Because that's how powerful you are. Nobody can cause you to think anything you don't want to think or feel anything you don't want to feel. But to face that kind of adversity that you face in the outer world, you need to be strong in your own sense and sensibility of yourself, who you are, what you are, and whose you are. You do not belong to the world. The world does not own you. You do not belong to the world. That which is within you is mightier than that which is within the world, the scriptures say. And you and I have to remember that. I belong to myself and no one else. And nobody else may own an iota of me. Not one iota of me. They do not have that power unless I give it to them. So, he's saying, we need not end up over and over and over again like Job, saying, that which I fear the most has come upon me. Now, he said to do that once or twice is okay. But like if this is your sad song all the time, something needs to change. Oh, I knew that was going to happen. I could have told you that was going to happen. I said that was going to happen. Well, guess what? It did. That's how powerful you are. It happened exactly like that. It didn't happen for you, did it? Because you knew it wasn't going to happen for you. That's how powerful thought is. Remember, power of imagination, power of thought, power of imaging, power of feeling is going to decide every time how your life is going to be. What you're thinking, what you're feeling, and what you're believing will decide all the time what your experiences in life will show up as. And this is not the first time you have heard this. So what's happening then? When we know this, and we've known it for quite some time, some of us, and yet we still feel that life at times is not on our side, and that life at times is not supporting us, and that life at times is not in our corner. Well, that's a thought in my head. It's not the truth. Life can only be on my side. Life can only be in my corner, and life can only want my good and good alone. There's only one one will of God, if God has a will for us. And that will is that you may have life and have it abundantly, and that your joy may be complete. That's what the scriptures say. That's the only will of God for you. Whatever other thing is happening, it's someone else's will, it's not God's will. And God doesn't even have a will for you for that. God has a knowingness about you, doesn't need a will. God has a knowingness about you. God knows where you are now. You're not going to stay. You're not going to end up where you are now. You are going to rise up like the prodigal son, and so am I, and we're going to come to ourselves and realize what is available to us and say yes to it. All that great good and all that great abundance and all that great joy. Sooner or later, you and I will awaken. We will wake up. We will know who we are. We will know life, and we will know what life is. We're here in this room because we want to do it sooner rather than later. Leastways I do. I'm tired going around the mulberry bush, up the airy mountains and down the rushy glens. I'm tired of taking the slow route, and I think you are too. I want to be a more direct route, and I want that to happen through more direct thinking and more direct feeling. More controlled thinking, more controlled feeling. Because understand this, if we do not control our thought will control us, and not necessarily for the good. My mother used to often say to us when we were children, "Oh, your mind is running away with you now, child." And I understand now what she meant. Because that mind likes to travel. The mind is a wanderer. The mind likes to be on the move, on the road all the time, not settle. But we are in charge of how that all works out. We are in charge. Now he says that if you and I, in faith, says the good Dr. Holmes, if you and I, in faith, deep faith, align our inward being with our outward being, and state the good that we desire, with that absolute faith in divine providence law, then we will realize that good. It cannot but be so. It cannot but be so. Life is endless imagination coupled with limitless possibility. And you and I get to be able to pick up that awareness and run with it for good and only good. As I said this morning, how much longer can we bear the emptiness and the ignorance of not knowing who we are, what we are, whose we are? It's not going to end that terrible longing within us all. That it doesn't matter what we accumulate, what success we have. It's never enough. It's never satisfying completely. Because there's something in us that says, there's something more than this. And the something more than this is finding myself, discovering myself, coming home to myself. That's the something more. You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts cannot find rest until they rest in you. The great Augustine. I know that. I feel that at times. And it's true. But to come home to myself means I have to know what I'm thinking, know what I am feeling, and decide whether I want to think that or feel that or not. How long can we bear it, this emptiness that shows up in the middle of so much? Shows up in the middle of so much. I don't know about you, but I want to see beyond the veil. I want the mystery to unravel. I want to be on the inside of the mystery of life. I don't want to be on the outside of it. I want to be on the inside of it, pulling away strand and strand and strand and strand, and enjoying the process until I see. Until I can feel and see a presence beyond form. Until I can hear the voice that is beyond earthly hearing. That's what I want. I believe you want it too. That's what I want. I want to stop all the freneticism that happens because of the confusion of getting caught up in circumstances and situations. The outer world. The outer world, if that's where I live all the time or most of the time, that's what's going to happen for me. Lots of confusions and situations that miter me. Don't want it anymore. Had enough of it. Don't like being confused. Don't like being caught up in freneticism. Don't like the rushing and the fussing and the hurrying and the racing and the ranting that I see all out there and sometimes am involved in. Don't want it. Want to have that sense of belonging and that sense of finding and that sense of being at home always in my mind, in my emotion, in myself. And I'm knowing, as I say, that all of us want it too, or we wouldn't be here. So you and I have to get our arms, our spiritual arms around this understanding that I am more than my circumstances, I am more than my failures, I am more than my accomplishments, I am so much more than my curriculum vitae, I am so much more than anything anyone might imagine about me or me about myself, and I'm certainly so much more than the one who sits in the TV chair watching soap operas or whatever else. I am so, thank God, more than that. Why don't we just get the moreness, identify with the moreness, say yes to the moreness, and start being the moreness straight away? Because changing my mind changes my world. When I change my state of consciousness, there is a corresponding change in my circumstances. Wow, is that not fantastic? We should be jumping up and down, throwing things in the air, saying, oh my God, I get it, I get it, I get it. I am my own answer to all of my own problems, challenges, situations, circumstances. I am it. And instead of saying, oh my God, I'm it, saying, isn't it magnificent? It's wonderful, I am it. I am it. And what I am is more than I think I am. And life is good and life is grand and life is great. And I'm going to get out there and have a hop, skip, and jump in my step and be all that I can be. Do you want that? Yes. When do you want that? Now. And so it is.
We invite you to experience Dr. Moira in person on Sundays. Our services are at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., and childcare is available. Please join us. If you enjoy these messages and would like to make a donation to our center, please visit our website at redondocsl.org. Thank you for your support of this ministry.